Welcome back! So, it's new patch time, or sort of, because this is the kind of patch that we haven't actually seen in WoW in quite a long time. No new season, no new dungeons or raid, but there's actually a ton of other in-between stuff to do, and this is our second minor content patch before the next season starts, which is kind of crazy. So the question is then, should you actually bother playing this patch? What's in it? Or should you just save your money or gold until patch 10.1 comes, when you're going to get a whole new season with a lot more content to do? Basically here to help you make that decision. This video then is half patch guide, half, hang on, how does it actually feel to play this? So, should be fun. Lists of content like this are great and all, but sometimes they don't really dig into the actual experience of playing the game, and that's really what matters. So let's talk about how this patch actually is going to feel. First, there is the campaign. In this campaign, you're basically going to learn more about the Drakthir in the lead up to patch 10.1, chasing down the legacy of Naltharion, right, and sort of the legacy he left for them. As far as campaigns go in the game then, this is another slice of standard enough Dragonflight campaign stuff. There is good characterization on the key Drakthir leaders, there's some fun exploration of these new Naga and pirate threats that have arrived in the area, but honestly for the most part, yeah, it's a slice of WoW campaign, you know what to expect. That being said, this is Blizzard's first attempt in forever to actually make a prologue to a big patch. This is a story prologue to 10.1, so yeah, I actually do think it's worth checking out because if you really sit down and engage with the stuff here, you're almost certainly going to enjoy 10.1's campaign a hell of a lot more because you'll actually understand these characters and everything that's going into it. So that's really good for WoW's narrative cohesion, something that obviously Shadowlands suffered from. Next then, the actual content in the Forbidden Reach. Well, there's a decent handful of side quests, so that's enough to chew on, and while they are not as excellent as the 10.0 quest chains that many of us loved, they are actually pretty good. They are nice to work through. There's also a ton of rares, 4 of which drop rewards. There's 3 pets and a new mount. There are also chests all over the place, of course, and a few regular events like the Forbidden Horde, which you'll probably find familiar, but if that's okay with you, then there are some new rewards to get, and also the Evolved Storm, which is also familiar and takes place at the Frost Zone Vault. That's the big place that Razageth was freed from, so you'll probably want to do a whole bunch of that to get this gooey snail-elemental even, mount. And honestly, this stuff is par for the course, which basically means that, yeah, it is a smaller version of a patch zone like Mechagon that is full of spontaneous group murder and, yeah, flying around and clicking on things. So while it's not really that important for the instanced content players, for people who like going around, getting the treasures, doing the reps, doing that kind of thing, spending time in the world, vibing out, this is actually, yeah, a really good slice of stuff to keep you entertained. It also includes a new reputation for each faction, the Drakthir ones. Not much here except, yep, it is another rep bar for you to fill up and some rewards to get. These are the main thing, the treasure runs in the Zskera vaults. Perhaps the most fitting comparison here is the exploration theme of the Trove of the Thunder King from all the way back in Mists of Pandaria, but quite a bit more modern and also without a timer, right? The actual gameplay of these vaults is this. You get keys from doing all of the content on the Reach, basically. You then take those keys to the vaults and you open doors. Behind those doors then lies a whole host of basically different enemies, different puzzles, right? And the puzzles aren't exactly like overcomplicated, but they do reward paying attention to what's actually happening in the room and interacting with stuff that might be a solution, right? So it is a nice, comfy way to explore, get some rewards, and kill time. It's really exactly what you would expect from something called a vault. There are tons of chests to open, tons of things to loot, and a bunch of puzzles to solve. It's actually a really nice, refreshing type of content to have in the game again. As for the rewards, if that's the bit that you care about, then there are pets. There are toys. There are achievements for going through all of it, as well, of course, as a metric ton of elemental overflow, which of course you can use to upgrade gear, and there's even a decent little bit of gold. Most importantly, though, there's the new Onyx Amulet. So this thing's super powerful. Over time, it is going to basically be your Bis ring, at least in this sort of end of Season 1 period, where you've got these primordial gems that go in it. We're talking strong enough here to be better than anything that you will have got until maybe, patch 10.2 content, unless you are like regularly doing, heroic or high keys. To cut a long story short, then, you will either find full primordial gems or you'll find fragments in the vaults, right? And of course around the Reach too. And then you can upgrade this stuff. You can upgrade existing gems using fragments via a jewel crafter. You can break existing gems down into fragments, or you can trade fragments in for random gems at a vendor. Basically, you do the world content, you get keys. You then have some fun digging around in the big loot cave vault, doing a few puzzles, opening some chests, then you upgrade your shiny new ring. In literal terms, it is a self-contained little extra activity that you unlock as a reward for doing world content, and it's repeatable too. The vault resets weekly, changing the rooms and relocking them all, so basically just keep on going in, do some puzzles, get some fresh loot for as long as you feel like it. I honestly think it's a really great, refreshing bit of content in the game. Very happy they put it in. The next bits of content then are the Bane questline, and of course the human and orc heritage armor stuff. Of course, it's not just the rewards here, they are questlines to do. Now, the Bane one isn't very long, but it does have everything that you might want. It's, of course, got time spent with characters that you like. It's got returning characters from Warcraft 3, a ton of drama, some interesting gameplay, and really what we've wanted. Some good old world building, and a nice juicy reward to boot. Pretty nice. The human and orc questlines, then, are pretty much the same, but they do have, of course, that more substantial reward with the heritage armor sets. They are still questlines that will take a good old play session each to work through, right? They are full of some real old lore, which I love to see, and relationships on both sides. It's actually something Blizzard have been getting way better at lately, so it's just nice to kick it back and have a blast of classic Warcraft, It's what I wanted. And then, last but not least for content, we've got the Winterpelt furbolgs. Okay, it's a rep that you grind, which is unsurprising given that it is a throwback to the Timbermaw rep from Classic. So after some introduction quests, you basically grind out hundreds of artifact fragments and scribe skins to basically hand in order to learn the furbolg language. The framing's kind of cute too. You don't actually grind out the rep, but learning the language, that gives you access to some quests with the furbolgs, and that will max out the rep for you. So, cute little way of framing it. You'll get toys, a trinket, and then access to a quartermaster. This quartermaster will sell to you a bunch of dragon customizations and furbolg stuff. Again, a pretty decent way to spend a few hours in total for those of you who just enjoy that kind of farming gameplay and collecting some rewards. And now that, after my interview with Ian Hazzikostas, yes, it seems a very safe bet that our dragons, right, our dragon riding is going to be an evergreen feature. Personally, I now feel a lot more comfortable investing my time in unlocking all of those customizations because I feel confident that they won't only be useful in the Dragon Isles and that I'll carry them into the next expansion. So, that's all the new content in the patch, but it's still going to be Season 1. So if you've sat here wondering why the hell you should play now and not just wait till Season 2, I suppose you could raise a good point. I would say that the more that we see World of Warcraft as not just raids, dungeons, and a PvP season, the better World of Warcraft is. This is stuff that's going on in the World of Warcraft, and honestly, if you've only been in that rut of just playing the sort of hyper endgame gameplay loop, playing WoW as if you'd in the same way you play Path of Exile season or something, I would encourage you to check out the other things that are there because they really have actually put quite a lot of craft into them. And the same goes for that equivalent content like the side quests in 10.0, which actually do have nice little stories. But beyond that though, some things are different and some things are better. So if you're not necessarily there for the quests and the vibes and the world, well, if you want an alt for 10.1, now is actually a good time to get going in that. We, of course, have got the Paladin rework, alongside a bunch of other class changes that we talked about just a few days ago in the big class video, and that stuff's super exciting. On top of that then, alt gearing is a lot easier now, with the Forbidden Reach dropping item level 385 bind on account gear tokens, which basically means you can even farm this out in your main, and then just have a stack of those gear tokens that you can send over to your alts. It's also an insane source of elemental overflow if you have any Primal Storms gear that, of course, you'd like to upgrade, even just to get that transmog. To make gear catch up even faster then, of course, Valor points are uncapped. They actually have been for a month now in the game, but there are going to be a lot of low keys that are being ran by fresh Retribution Paladins for the next few weeks, so I imagine now is a pretty good time to just get on those. There's also, then, the fact that getting Curve and Keystone Master are a lot easier than they were before, right? Over the past few months, content has, people have got stronger, and some content has been tuned down. I mean, just last week, we saw a pretty huge nerf to Razageth on Heroic and Mythic. We saw some more Mythic Plus tuning that actually does, it basically gives you a longer timer for the likes of Vault. So if you've just finding you've been a bit lagging behind, or maybe you gave up, now is a great chance to head in and get those major seasonal achievements and also get some alts prepared. And if you are interested in being fast right out the gate in 10.1, then upgrading your Onyx Amulet will actually give you a good bit of a power boost until you're replacing that probably with heroic gear, though obviously that'll all depend on tuning. And lastly, it is perfect time to finish off the renowns that you haven't actually done yet. And that's because each day in the Reach, you're able to pick a major faction to have 10% extra rep with that day, as well as a hefty renown boost in the form of a daily task. Honestly, beyond that, yeah, sure, there's not that much reason. You can feel free to wait. So, why play or why not? Kind of leads us then to the interesting question here. Why play this now instead of waiting until 10.1 when there's more new content? Well, I think there's a few things to consider. Killing rares. That tends to be easier when a new zone drops, because that's when other people are going around triggering those spawns and nuking them down, right? Calling them out in chat, just that kind of MMO experience. Another point is this is actually designed as prologue content to 10.1, so, doing the campaign is at least worth it before rushing through the shiny new thing in 10.1 whenever that drops, because 10.1 will be better if you've played the prologue. What a surprise. Most of it, though, boils down to whether or not you want to do this now before Season 2 launches, and you're too busy, because when Season 2 launches, you'll have all the Season 2 things to do, right? And that means that you've got the Zarlet Cavern to run into, you've got the new dungeons, you've got the new raid. It's a hell of a lot of stuff. It's a little bit of a callback to Legion when they intentionally split patches into world and story content, and then they actually did the season later on. And Blizzard did that so that, the seasonal content wouldn't hold back the world content if the world content was ready, but also so that when the world content came out, that people wouldn't feel like they had to immediately rush headlong into the new content without actually being able to stop and smell the roses, right? So now is the perfect time to stop and smell the pretty new roses that Blizzard are unveiling. Though at the end of the day, and obviously it's going to be personal to you, whether or not this experience that I described here today is compelling. I think Blizzard would be more than happy if you decided to spend some time doing anything else, because then maybe when 10.1 comes back, you'll return and you'll be happy for it. But what I would say is my personal recommendation is, actually go try it out. There is a big old slice of content to do, and I think sometimes, as World of Warcraft has, from Legion through to now, very much morphed into this big, seasonal game where we're all just thinking about our gear, and we're maybe not thinking as much about World of Warcraft as a world, as an MMO that has other things, you know? We're very used to World of Warcraft being tab target fantasy destiny, in a way, in terms of how it's like molded over time. What I would say then is there's a little bit of retrading for all of us. I mean, even take Zereth Mortis, some of those side quests were actually really nice. But because we're all just zooming through it super quick, because we've been trained to play Modern WoW, in the way we've been trained to play Modern WoW, it turns out that, like, in some cases, it doesn't even matter how much effort the developers put in, we're going to miss it, because they trained us to play a game, and now that there's so much more within World of Warcraft, in a way, we've got to break the conditioning. You know, something to do with Bobby's Maze. It turns out now, if you break out of Bobby's Maze, there is actual content with heart in it. And this is more of that. So overall, thumbs up to patch 10.0.7. And it's a pretty crazy world that we live in, where 10.1 is just on the horizon, already in testing. And whenever 10.1 comes out, we can be pretty damn sure that 10.1.5 will pretty much be on the PTR almost immediately. Isn't that crazy? And the utter opposite of this time in Shadowlands, when we were all worrying about Korthia and domination shards. Ugh. Okay, that's been it for today. Let me know if this video helped you make up your mind, and if you're coming back. With that said, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.